In the early hours of December 19th, after a grueling 16-hour negotiation session, European Union leaders emerged with a decision that simultaneously showcased both their capacity for compromise and their profound internal fractures. A deal was struck to provide a €90 billion loan to support Ukraine over the next 2 years. The mechanism for this substantial financial package was as creative as it was necessary, leveraging unspent funds from the European Union's common budget as collateral. This intricate arrangement was specifically designed to navigate a political minefield, bypassing the staunch opposition of Hungary and Slovakia. By structuring the aid as a loan backed by existing budget surpluses rather than a direct fiscal transfer, the EU skillfully avoided creating new financial obligations for these dissenting member states, preserving a fragile veneer of unity. For Budapest and Bratislava, would vehemently oppose any direct EU funding for Kyiv's war effort. This compromise offered a politically palatable off-ramp, allowing the bloc to move forward without their explicit financial commitment. However, beneath the surface of this hard-won agreement lies a far more significant and telling failure. The summit's most ambitious proposal, a plan to seize frozen Russian sovereign assets and use them to directly finance Ukraine's reconstruction and defense, collapsed spectacularly. The EU failed to achieve the required consensus, leaving one of its boldest strategic initiatives in tatters. This ambitious plan, which would have marked a historic and punitive financial maneuver against Moscow, crumbled under the weight of immense legal complexities and daunting political risks. The very concept of confiscating the central bank assets of another sovereign nation, even one engaged in an act of aggression, plunged the member states into a quagmire of international law, raising concerns about setting a dangerous precedent that could undermine the global financial system and the status of the euro as a reserve currency. The potential for legal challenges from Russia and even other nations wary of asset seizure loomed large, creating a level of uncertainty that many member states were unwilling to accept. As the negotiations over the Russian assets faltered and the prospect of a complete stalemate became frighteningly real, key European powers began to sound the alarm. France and Italy, sensing the impending diplomatic fallout, forcefully advocated for alternative financing mechanisms. Their diplomats and leaders worked tirelessly behind the scenes, pressing upon their counterparts that leaving the summit without any concrete financial agreement for Ukraine would constitute a political catastrophe of the highest order. The message was clear. Public display of disunity on such a critical issue would not only embolden the Kremlin, but would also send a devastating signal of weakness and indecision to the rest of the world, particularly to allies in the United States who were watching the EU's commitment closely. The failure to act would have been interpreted as a crack in the very foundation of European resolve, a moment where internal squabbles took precedence over the existential threat posed by Russia's war of aggression. The pressure exerted by Paris and Rome was instrumental in shifting the focus back towards finding a workable, if less ideal, solution. In this high-stakes environment, officials from Belgium played a pivotal, albeit cautious, role. Their interventions underscored the delicate balance the EU was trying to strike. Belgian officials stressed that the decision to pursue a borrowing-based mechanism, rather than outright seizing Russian assets, was a crucial move to avert a complete breakdown of internal cohesion. The proposal to use the frozen assets had exposed deep divisions, and forcing the issue could have led to an irreparable schism. More pragmatically, Belgium had a significant national interest at stake. A substantial portion of the frozen Russian assets, estimated to be in the hundreds of billions of euros, is held within its jurisdiction, primarily at the Brussels-based clearinghouse Euroclear. This geographical reality placed Belgium in a uniquely vulnerable position. Officials voiced grave concerns about the potential for direct and targeted retaliation from Russia should the EU proceed with confiscation. Such retaliation could range from cyber attacks on its financial infrastructure to other forms of asymmetric warfare, making the Belgian government understandably hesitant to champion the most aggressive course of action. Ultimately, the outcome of the summit was widely perceived as a significant setback for the plan's most ardent supporters, namely Germany and the European Commission. Both Berlin and the Commission's leadership in Brussels had invested considerable political capital in advocating for the use of Russian assets, viewing it not only as a just way to make the aggressor pay for the damages inflicted upon Ukraine, but also as a powerful financial weapon. Their inability to rally the necessary support from all 27 member states laid bare the structural impediments that frequently hampered the European Union's ability to act decisively and swiftly in times of crisis. The requirement for unanimity on key foreign policy and financial decisions, a foundational principle of the EU, once again proved to be a significant bottleneck. This episode served as a stark reminder that despite its economic might, the EU's complex decision-making processes can render it slow and cumbersome, especially when confronted with issues that touch upon the core sovereign interests and legal traditions of its individual members. The gap between the bold rhetoric of its leaders and its practical ability to implement groundbreaking policy was on full display. Despite this notable failure, the idea of leveraging Russia's frozen wealth has not been entirely abandoned. While the immediate plan to seize the assets was shelved, EU leaders did manage to agree on a forward-looking, albeit more cautious path. They committed to continue exploring the legal avenues that might, in the future, allow them to use the profits generated by the frozen assets of the Russian central bank. The concept is to treat the immobilized funds as a principal that generates interest and other returns, and to then use this windfall to back future loans for Ukraine. This approach is seen as legally less fraught than outright confiscation of the principal sum itself. By tasking legal experts to continue their work on this front, the EU has kept the door open to a more robust, asset-backed financing model down the line. This final agreement represents a small concession to the hawks, a signal that the bloc has not given up on the principle of making Russia pay, even if the immediate path to doing so remains obscured by a fog of legal and political challenges. The 90 billion euros loan may have papered over the cracks for now. But the fundamental debate over Russia's frozen assets continues to simmer, promising further tests of European unity in the months and years to come.